Good afternoon. Welcome to the HILT Talent Pipeline Committee, April 11th, 2024. We've got some really fantastic updates coming your way. To start out, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself into the group chat, that'd be appreciated. Include your name, your role, and your organization. And we did have a request to include your email. Remember that the group chat can be downloaded and saved into your files as well. So then you go ahead and have the contact information for everyone who attended. So we really appreciate that and welcome everyone's support and connecting either after or during the meeting as well. Feel free to use the chat freely. And, if you want, it is kind of a small group here. If you want to come off mute and just kind of talk as well, you're more than welcome to do that in addition. So we will get started here. And kind of to start us out, we've got one of our co-chairs, Rosette Boteo. Rosette, I'll pass it over to you. And you're on mute, just so you know. Cannot hear you yet.
Okay, so you can't hear me from the phone.
We can hear you now.
Still okay?
Yes. Okay, so our Rosette is kind of figuring out some of those technical issues. I know we were kind of trying to troubleshoot those right before the meeting. We'll let her get set up and we'll get started here.
Okay, does that still work?
We can hear you well.
I'm so sorry. Yes, all this audio issues. I did dial in, and it sounded like it was working, but never mind. So, okay, thank you, James, and thanks everyone for bearing with me. Technology. So again, welcome everyone, and thank you for making the time to join us today. We know that your attendance is very much appreciated and very important in helping us move this work forward. So to start off, does anyone want to share their feedback or thoughts on the Sound Careers in Healthcare 2024 event? And I can get the ball rolling by just sharing that everyone's commitment to excellence and their ability and gracefulness to be flexible and adapt were huge components in making the event successful. I know we had issues where a school that didn't register showed up, but we were able to adapt and didn't have to turn them away. So their students were able to participate. I think the volunteer groups that I was working with as well, they were very patient, very graceful, willing to help out wherever they needed to, and just open to help support. So we really appreciated that. Anybody else would like to share their thoughts and or feedback, reflections?
I'd like to share a couple of things. So I wish I had followed and dropped off at the loading zone, because following the parking directions and all the stairs, so we all ended up helping each other out with our rolly carts and things that we thought would be more easily navigated. And I get that you're at the hub, but there was another parking area that was a little bit closer. Major confusion. I think it could have helped to have signage or somebody from the network in the parking lot to help direct people would have been helpful. As well as maybe you want to leave and come back and go to the loading zone and then drive back around and do that. And so I think that's one key thing. The second thing is, and it's fine, I think somewhere I saw a thing about like a parking email, but when you do that parking thing, I didn't get how to put the coupon thing in. I don't know, asking for money reimbursement, but I think that's another thing to work out with the parking. Other than signing in and being told where our table was, I don't think there was good cross-check about the tables and like a team huddle, because then there was an orientation of all the volunteers, but not necessarily the people with the table. So a little more clarity around the table responsibilities. And we thought there was a lull. And so we were picking things up, and then it looked like we were about to leave, which was true. My colleague had to leave. They weren't feeling well. And then they're like, there's another group of students coming by, but they didn't stop at us and say, hey, can you wait another half an hour? There's still another group. So I get it. I've ran big programs and the rotations were good. I also would have loved to have known what was happening upstairs, because when I went up and visited folks, it was like, wow, there was a lot of hands-on things. So as a college, I definitely felt disconnected from what was happening upstairs. And then, some chaperones introduced themselves, some didn't. So just a couple of little things that would have helped. So, we left because we had to go, but we have food for thought for next year to bring more swag, more different things, etc. And I get the method to the madness from school and trying to put things together, but then the disconnect with the hands-on activity. So I don't know if it would make sense to have schools near their hands-on activities or not, or keep it that way, but it's something to think about for next year.
Thank you, Lauren. Yeah, and actually, and this year we did so, we separated, right, the school education institutions. So it was a decision that we made from feedback last year, because last year we had all organizations, right? So hands-on activities, healthcare systems, employers, and then also educational institutions, all in the hub. And the feedback then was that it was too crowded and it was too loud. And so this time around, we said, okay, well, why don't we separate the two and have more space? But it sounds like, okay, that was a solution, or it wasn't the solution that we thought would be beneficial for all.
It was loud upstairs when I went up there. We had some more room, but it could be just how the room is configured and how many vendors you have. But I think about a serpentine, a flow. You start at one point, or if you start at a different point, and what does that flow look like when you have different experiences, whether you go from here's an opportunity in a career, and then here's how the pathway to get there. So if we're trying to promote success in education and pathways, they kind of maybe be a little bit more near each other to get students interested into what that pathway could be for things. So if they wanted the dental pathway, here's the schools that do the dental, and then here's the dental experience, or whichever things. Because I was surprised at some of your vendors, you had Laerdal there. So I didn't know if the intent for Laerdal was looking at, computer generated and the AI and the work with that, or was it to be a Laerdal tech? I wasn't sure because we have no sim programs in our state, right, for that.
Yeah, Lauren, I think you bring up some really good points. Thank you for that. And that was definitely something new to try with kind of moving the education portion down to the first floor. And as Rosette kind of said, to kind of help congestion. So I think later on in this presentation, we are kind of be looking at feedback, not only from the students, but also from participants and also some of the teachers as well. So I think this part would go really well in that, so we can capture it all together. But thank you for that. That was really, really definitely something to work towards for next year. I will just highlight, one of the things that we did is that we had a lot of moving parts. And I think as we go through the presentation, sharing the data, that'll kind of come evident of some of those moving parts that affected the way the program kind of rolled out. But yeah, definitely good stuff here. Rosette, I'll give it over to you. I'm on the agenda sheet just in case, just making sure you can see that. And we'll start with the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So again, welcome everyone. And I know James was asking some of you folks to go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. So we're asking for your name, your title, your organization that you are with, and then we're also now including email addresses. So if you haven't done that, if you're able to do so, please drop that in the chat. And thank you for those of you that already have done so. And then moving on, we will start with just a quick overview of our purpose and role for the Talent Pipeline Committee. Also review the charter. Tatiana will go ahead and give some event updates for Sound Careers in Healthcare 2024, and then we will wrap up with feedback and next steps. So if we want to go on to the next slide, thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and cover what our purpose is. So why does the Talent Pipeline Committee exist? So we are here to provide a working space to actualize HILT goals related to collaborative talent development, workforce diversity, and equity. And what the role of the committee is to serve as a working committee of the HILT network to develop actionable plans for implementation of core components of the student experience package, and also engage our entire HILT network in these student experience package activities. And so Tatiana will give a brief overview of what those components are within the student experience package. But quickly, just a reminder, it's the Speakers Bureau, the YouTube channel, and of course, the Big Sound Careers in Healthcare event. Now to go ahead and cover our charter. The Talent Pipeline Committee promotes awareness of healthcare jobs with equitable advancement pathways to underserved students in the counties that we serve, which are Pierce, King, and Snohomish. And so how we do that is by using our guiding principles. And those are, one, focus on middle and high school students. So just ensuring that the deliverables that we are focusing on are actually meeting the needs of these students that we're serving, both in middle and high school. Secondly, we prioritize underserved student populations, and those students are BIPOC, low income, first generation, and/or English language learners. And last but not least, we stay data driven around the careers that we promote. And so by highlighting jobs that are not only in demand by the industry, but also have a pathway for these individuals to grow and to have a living wage. So with that said and covered, I will now hand it over to, I believe, Tatiana and Christina to go over some of the updates for the big event that we had in mid to late March.
Thank you very much, Rosette. So yeah, Tatiana and I are very excited to present the information and the data from this year's Sound Careers in Healthcare event, which was just a short 3 weeks ago. So, it just wasn't too long ago. And I'm really pleased to say that overall, the event was a success. And as always, one of our post activities with the Sound Careers in Healthcare Planning Committee is that we then reflect on the data and the feedback to guide our planning in what changes we want to implement for next year. Of course, always with a plan of providing an even better event every time. And also I want to acknowledge that this event takes a lot of support, and it takes many, many, many hours from people power to plan and execute this event. So I want to thank HILT, our HILT captains, and the Talent Pipeline Committee for your support and your participation. Of course, we do have a planning committee, and we'll do some acknowledgements later, but I just want to put a shout out to the planning committee. We are over 170 volunteers that were there that day, all of our financial sponsors, and the 29 plus participating organizations that really helped make the event a success this year. And as we go through our presentation, we will do those acknowledgements of everyone. They're all very critical to success. As you may be aware, Tatiana Torres joined the Washington Alliance for Better Schools in January. And since she joined in January, she has literally hit the ground running to pull together all the logistics in a very short couple of months. I think she said at one point she felt like she just ran a marathon, which I totally get. But she did a fantastic job. And so I just want to acknowledge and thank her as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tatiana so that she can share some of the data from and feedback from this year's event.
Thank you, Christina. So before we go into the data, I just want to give everybody a quick overview and reminder of the current initiatives we have with the HILT Pipeline Committee. One of them being the video library. It is a YouTube channel for HILT. It has videos that are created by healthcare professionals. They're sharing their career path journeys and experiences. There's also some really cool videos on there just about, like that sort of like shadow some healthcare professionals as well. These are really great resources for teachers to use for their students who are interested in healthcare careers. The second initiative we have is the Speakers Bureau. This is a service that matches healthcare professionals to classrooms on topics aligned with middle and high school curriculum, specifically around the healthcare industry. It is a free service. I will be posting the link to this if anybody in here is interested in becoming a speaker, or if they know maybe some schools or some teachers that would like to sign up. I will be posting the link after I'm done presenting here within the chat, so you guys can have access to that. And lastly, the career event, Sound Careers in Healthcare, which is a yearly event that we had. This year's event was an absolute whirlwind, but it was pretty successful. And so that's going to be the focus of the rest of this presentation for us. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move into the recap. Go to the next slide, James. And then again, just to reiterate what Christina had said, I just want to say a big thank you for all of your support, to everybody that helped and, you know, put all hands on the ground and just kind of went running with everything. It was not possible without you. So we do appreciate that. So I want to start talking by some of the event improvements and additions that we did this year. I wanted to make a note that these improvements and additions were based off of survey feedback from last year's event. And so this is what these changes that we made were sort of aiming to address some of those. And one of them being the reflection and prayer space that we added or made sure that was available. This event was occurring during Ramadan. And given that a lot of the students are Muslim, you know, are part of that, they wanted that space to be able to reflect and pray during the event when they needed to. So that was really exciting for us to offer for them this year. We added a future blank on the student name badges. So once students got in and they registered and they got their name tag with their lanyard, it said, you know, future blank, where they could put in what their future career is, so to speak, more or less. The theme for this year's event was Imagine a Future in Healthcare. So this is just one of the ways we were trying to get the students to sort of imagine themselves in this, imagine their future in healthcare. We also had a selfie photo booth. That was a very fun thing for the kids to stop by. It had a bunch of different fun little props, stethoscopes. I believe Nora and a couple other people provided lab coats and a bunch of other really fun things that the students just absolutely loved. So that was really great. We had a revised school check-in process to help expedite and sort of alleviate some congestion issues that were present last year. We do think that there was probably some room for improvement with the revised portion that we did this. So, you know, lessons learned, as they say. And to Lauren's point here, we did have the higher education tables on the first floor to reduce some of the ballroom congestion. That was one of the biggest pain points from last year, was that a lot of the kids felt that it was too crowded and they couldn't move anywhere. But, you know, as you said, Lauren, you felt that there was a bit of a disconnect there. So thank you for that feedback. That is important. You know, we are always striving to continue to find ways to improve the flow of this type of event. We also, all of our tabling and activity vendors had their tables assigned upon arrival. I believe last year was just sort of a first come, first serve. And this year we wanted to have them to have designated stations so they could just go and set up and be in peace there. We also offered some postcards for the students, and these were really great. I think it was Johnny who was working with James that put together these postcards. And so on the back of the postcards, it had, you know, what for spaces for the kids to list their actionable next steps. And they had the option to send in those posts or to drop those postcards off, and then they will get sent to them in the future so they can look at those postcards and say, oh, you know, did I follow up here? Did I do this? It's another way that we would try to incorporate the theme of imagining a future in healthcare for yourself. We also put together a link tree. This is available as a post-event follow-up option. It has a link to all of the organizations that were represented, all of the colleges that were represented in there as well, with all of their site information, etc. And lastly, for the in-person event, we did have simulation technology via hands-on activities. This was something that was really, really exciting for the kids, and they really, really absolutely loved that. So for the virtual event, we had just a few changes. So we had a medical case study with a live Q&A panel. The medical case study was pre-recorded, so it wasn't a new necessarily thing, but it did still feature the live panel with the Q&A session. You could see the wonderful picture of all of our wonderful panelists that were present for this. It was really awesome. We also shortened the event time by 30 minutes, and it was done over the webinar Zoom platform. Next slide. Okay, so for impact evaluation, we wanted to put together some success metrics to define, or I guess to show, how the event performed itself. And so we had three: one that was around reach, another that was around ROI, and then another one that was around engagement. So for our reach, we wanted at least 500 high school students to attend, specifically from Snohomish, King, and Pierce counties, where over half of the school's population identified as either BIPOC, low income, and or first generation English learners. For ROI, the way that we measured this was, were the kids excited, did this event do what it aimed to do, which is get kids more interested in healthcare so that we see them later on down the line in these industries making these changes. And For our student attendees, 97% expanded their awareness of the healthcare event options, 72% gained an increased interest in healthcare careers, and 67% listed out actionable next steps to pursue a healthcare career. I wanted to point out that we had a 90.4% response rate for the post-event from the students, which is an excellent, excellent number. And so the fact that 97% of that 90.4% felt that they had expanded their awareness was really, really awesome. And it increased their interest in pursuing career pathways and going to higher education institutions for healthcare itself. And the last one was engagement. So we wanted high engagement with students and the medical professionals during the in-person and the virtual days. So ways we looked at this were student response rates and/or identified next steps, a little bit like the ROI, but there's small differences, and you'll see we'll get more into that. So that is what our success metrics that we planned during the 2024 planning. That's what we had decided on during the 2024 planning. And so you'll see that we actually did reach all of those. So it's really, I'm excited to share that information with you. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into the data here. And we'll start with just one of the goals that we had, which is one of the metrics that we had, which was reach. We did meet our goal of having at least 500 students attend Sound Careers in Healthcare. The in-person attendance was about the same as last year. It's a difference of about 17 students. I did want to say here that the virtual participation was significantly lower than last year. Preliminary feedback from school districts and leaders was about the length of the program. As you know, as we mentioned, it was 2.5 hours. This means that it was spread over 2 to 3 class periods. So it was a bit challenging to coordinate with teachers and the student schedules. These challenges are not present for a full day event. It's actually far easier for them to coordinate that with their students. They also expressed that there is a much higher demand for in-person events over virtual events, especially coming out of the COVID years, which is completely understandable. And due to the low numbers of the virtual event, we didn't receive enough surveys to justify quantifiable data to report for this event. So all of the subsequent data that you're going to see in this presentation is going to be for the in-person event. We do want to mention that the virtual event was recorded, including the live interviews and the panel, and the panel with the healthcare professionals with the Q&A. That is going to be uploaded to the video library and can be used as a resource for teachers to show their students moving forward. Next slide. And I just wanted to show you guys just a couple of pictures that we gathered of the in-person event. You know, we did leverage the HILT network and UW's Doctors for a Day program, and to provide this hands-on career fair for the students. We got some really, really good photography there, but you can see in here that the kids are just really engaged. They love all of the activities, and it was a packed house. So.
Yeah, and Tatiana, I'll just offer a comment that, I mean, being up on stage, you could see all the activities. It's so fun to kind of see all the students involved. I mean, I saw people that were using rulers and some that were waddling babies and others that were trying to brush these big teeth that were plastic in size. And so lots of different activities. I thought students were really into it, and that was really fun to see.
Yeah, I agree. You can move on to the next one. So continuing on with our reach goal, over half of the student attendees were racially and geographically diverse. So if you take a look at the racial and ethnic makeup of the students, we had 79.2% that identified as BIPOC or were part of those other minority groups that we had called out, with 13% white students and then 7.8% that had preferred not to say. I think that, you know, for an event that has almost 500 students there, to have 79.2% of the population identifying as BIPOC is really, really awesome. And you know, that's what a wonderful way to show that, you know, representation is on the rise for these groups. So and in terms of the geographic makeup for all of the students, they came from 3 different counties: Snohomish, King, and Pierce. You can see that King had the highest percentage, with 43% of the students being from King. So you'll notice that there is a 4% unknown. That is based off of recipients that did not pre-register, or they didn't complete the survey, or they just didn't answer that question on there. And so we literally just don't know which county they came from. So this is this wasn't actually part of a goal. This was actually a new data point that we had added for this year, which was gender identity for our students. And the reason that we asked this is because gender identity is another indicator of equitable representation. Kids want to see professionals that look like them. And this is something that is increasingly more important for those that are part of the non-binary community, or those who identify with a gender that is outside of that. And so gathering this information does create a starting point for us to address further inequities within the healthcare industry. And so this was really exciting for us to see. So, and then just to further break down just the students, where they were coming from, you know, as we mentioned, they came from 3 different counties, which was King, Snohomish, and Pierce. In King, we had 4 school districts represented, which were Seattle, Renton, Kent, and Highline. Snohomish, we had Marysville, Mukilteo, Everett, and Edmonds. And then in Pierce, it was just the Tacoma School District. If you look at the actual high schools that were in attendance there, the list that we have, the bold ones are the schools that had not previously attended this event. So we had quite a few schools that were new this year that did not attend last year. And that's really exciting to see, especially if we want to continue expanding this event. So this is for our ROI goal metric that we were trying to measure, which is that the in-person event increased the students' understanding of health careers and college options, and most plan to pursue a job in healthcare. And so the way that these questions were worded in the survey was specifically around this event. So for example, after this event, are you more aware of your health career choices? Are you more likely to pursue a healthcare career, etc.? So you can see on here that the event had a really, really large influence on these students, which is excellent. And so 97% said that they were more aware of their healthcare career choices following this event. In terms of how were they more likely to pursue a healthcare career, 72.7% said that they were more likely to pursue after this event. We had 24% that were undecided, which I think makes sense. You know, these are teenagers, they're trying to figure themselves out as well and navigate through this world. So we can't expect all of them to be so sure all the time. And then we had 3% that said less likely. And while that's not always a fun thing to see, I think it's also important to note that, like, you know, it is important for students to understand whether or not this is something they actually want to pursue and are passionate about before, you know, it's too late for them to kind of pick a path for themselves. So even if this event, you know, made them less likely, that to me, that is still a good thing, because it made them aware of what they did and did not want to do. And then after this event, we asked them also if their interest in healthcare was influenced by this event at all. 81.1% said they were more interested in healthcare overall, with 15% saying no change and 3% saying less interested.
Yeah, impressive data, man. That is really, really good. Any thoughts or reflections so far? Just want to kind of open it up to the audience and see if there's any ideas or thoughts or anything that has come out blaring at you, or maybe some of your reflections on the event that tie into the data. Yeah, Marissa.
Just thinking about the response rate, because it's great. And I know that there was an incentive last time to try to increase that response rate. Was there another incentive this year?
It was the same incentive as last year. I think we just had a slightly easier process, or more accessible process for a lot of the students to complete these surveys. So I think that's where we got lucky with that.
Great.
Yeah, we find that with students, there's got to be some kind of incentive, so to kind of do that. Yeah, and Marissa, you were commenting on, you know, obviously helping students identify the careers that they want and those that they may not want. And a lot of times I think, you know, students kind of hear about nursing, they hear about becoming a doctor or a nurse or radiologist and all those things, and they have these ideas and fantasies, but not until you actually go see the work, do the work, and try it out to see if it really fits really well. So yeah, thank you, Marissa, for that comment. Any other reflections?
Okay, great.
All right, we'll move on.
Yeah. And so this is dealing with our goal for increasing engagement in here. The way that we measured this was, not just were they engaged, but were they engaged enough to actually list actionable next steps for them to start their career pathways in here if they were interested in taking that route. 67% of the students that listed out an actionable step, or 67% did list out an actionable step after this event. And so you'll see here that, where it says types of actionable steps, these were the most common answers that we got, from most common to least common. So we had some obvious answers in there that, were graduate high school and go to college, research or talk to more schools, join special programs, especially summer programs. There was a lot of mention of summer programs, so I thought that was really awesome. So that might be something we want to focus on in the future as well. And then we also had them saying that they would like to look into internships, apprenticeships, or shadow a professional. I emphasize this, and I will go into that in just a little bit, but there's a reason for that. They also wanted to look into volunteer options as well as just research more career pathways in general. So in terms of the shadowing apprenticeships or internships, that actually accounted for 11% of the actionable next steps, which last year's data had little to no mention of these steps. This was also one of the points of feedback that a lot of the students actually gave in terms of what they would like to see next year, which was, I want to see something that offers apprenticeships or shadowing, specifically calling out for apprenticeships and shadowing. So I think that's a really big opportunity we have for next year. And altogether, when students were asked what they liked about the event, at least 73% of students had a specific response to something that was part of the event that they enjoyed. So, next slide.
Tatiana,
Yeah.
I just had a comment, I guess, on that feedback. So I noticed like a lot of it's like, I will do this, I will do that, which is good because it kind of creates that autonomy for them. But I guess that makes me wonder, you kind of touched on it already with just kind of the apprenticeship support or, what kind of stuff could be done next year. But I'm also thinking, what kind of support could be done to help, guide, facilitate, if a student is saying, I want to research and I'm going to go do these things, like ways we can just, as a group, obviously, or a committee, just leverage what we have to help guide. Yeah, all that good stuff.
Well, and one of the things that we have that we're still kind of finalizing is that link tree. So when that's provided to all the students, all those resources from all the organizations, we're actually dividing it up and categorizing it by, industry, support partners, and also training for those that offer any training. Now, a student can go to that specific subset and look at all the training options that are available right now. And then, just like scholarships or anything else, you can kind of keep that in your folder, so to speak, for every year to keep an eye out for those additional training opportunities. So yeah, good feedback on that. Thank you, Abby. Any other comments about the data points or actionable next steps? All right, I'll switch to the next slide.
And so this is just a couple snippets that I have for some of the feedback that we got back from the students that was really positive. You guys can read there. They really liked that this event gave them so many ideas and helped them understand different types of healthcare pathways based on like the activities. A lot of them mentioned, that they really liked how enthusiastic and engaging all of the volunteers were. They, and overwhelmingly, when students were asked about what they liked best and what they would like to see more of next year, the majority, and I mean large majority of the responses were more activities. These kids could not get enough of these activities. They loved them. They wanted to see more of them. They wanted to spend more time in them. So I think that this is probably going to be like a really big prioritization that we can take next year, just in terms of, how ways to better this event as well. We also did have some constructive feedback, and as an old boss once told me, feedback is a gift. So even if you see some things on here that maybe are not, necessarily the best, to me, that is an opportunity to grow. And so, the students here gave a lot of like really good, like nuanced answers just in terms of what the constructive feedback was. So you can see on here, one of the things they said, as they said, stations, more activities, etc., smaller groups of people. The most common points of feedback for improvement were, as mentioned, more hands-on activities. The second one was kind of a tie between better organization or having a less crowded venue. A lot of the students still felt that even though we did a lot to try to alleviate that congestion, a lot of the students still felt like it was too crowded and it was a lot for them to navigate. And other options or other points of feedback that main points of feedback that they offered were, more college and organizational tabling options, so more places for them to check out, particularly in the higher ed category. And they also just wanted more places to sit or eat or just rest, which is completely understandable. These are really big events. They're very overstimulating. As somebody who is easily overstimulated herself, I can absolutely understand wanting to just find a small, quiet space to just sit and decompress for a second. So that's definitely something that we can try to focus on next year as well. And next slide. I wanted to highlight some of the volunteer feedback that we got. As mentioned, we did have over 170 volunteers. All of the post-event survey respondents did describe their experience as positive overall, and over 94% of the respondents said that they would volunteer again. So I think that's a really excellent number. You can see some of the positive that we had, some of the positive feedback we had, it was an amazing event. It connected students to learn about medical fields and how to complete educational requirements all in one building. It was, they mentioned it was really great to have such a variety of professionals and levels of expertise represented within each activity in the station. This was about getting students to understand diverse and in-demand healthcare pathways, which is absolutely necessary. And some people said they did like that this event was a little bit more spread out. Some of the constructive feedback, a lot of the suggested improvements centered around better logistical planning and or more comprehensive volunteer training. This is something that I myself during the event was thinking as well. So, that is something that, as part of the planning committee that we are going to try to focus and prioritize as well next year, particularly the volunteer training, because I do know that, as volunteers, it was a bit confusing about where to go and who to see and what to do.
Yeah, and other feedback. And Lauren, just noting that this would be an area that we can definitely include that feedback that you provide in the beginning, which I think is super valuable, on that perspective of kind of the way that information is communicated. And there was kind of a fast transition, as noted, just when January hit, March seemed to come really quickly from January. So, but no, I would agree. I mean, definitely trying to get that information, to people beforehand, trying to keep people in the communication loop, obviously having those good resources available so everyone can stay informed. And then Lauren, just picking out a few things. You mentioned parking, obviously, and then some of that delivery drop off. I know that on Wednesday, the day before, we did offer a drop off time, and we had some people that dropped it off. Not everybody. I was thinking it was going to be a little bit busier on that day before, but yeah, walking up those stairs, it is a workout. If you're not a hiker, you will be a hiker that day. Those stairs can be a little bit congested, but fortunately we did have some people that were willing to help each other out. And I saw some other people kind of helping other people take stuff from up their cars, but that is definitely something to be noted. I mean, UW is a hilly school, and parking was at the bottom of the hill. That's true. Other comments from volunteers and feedback, other general reflections. I mean, what else do you got?
Going back to parking, I'm wondering if, I know last year we were provided a voucher, so we didn't have to stop at that little kiosk to enter the information that was included in the email. So I wonder if that was just a change for this year, Tatiana, that we couldn't get those vouchers, because last year it was much easier, right? Because we had a volunteer, and as you're pulling up, they're asking you, are you here for Sound Careers in Healthcare? Yes. Okay, name, check you off. Here's your voucher. And then easy peasy, right? You just leave your voucher and park, drive off. I mean, walk off. But this time around, I frankly didn't enter my PIN code because I was already late. And but luckily, I mean, I didn't get any ticket or towed. But maybe if that's something that we can explore further for next year, just to make it a bit easier.
So when I it seems that they had changed the way that they were doing a couple of the things for like the parking reservations and stuff. And so that was something that we had asked them, had asked UW when we had made the original reservation for that day. And they, they had said that no, it's through a code. The other thing that was a little bit different through the parking was that they had a very completely different designated drop-off spot for all of the schools. I think last year they kind of dropped the buses, dropped them off pretty much right in front of the building. And this time they had to go to a whole separate cul-de-sac or roundabout where the students were dropped off as well. So I do hear you. That was something that was slightly out of our control, but I do agree that that's probably something we can try to negotiate a little bit better for them next year, because you were not the only one that was confused by some of this. So.
And then just putting a note, Betsy's comment regarding signage, I think, with that long walk from the parking lot to the hub, just having increased signage kind of all over to kind of help direct volunteers to get to the hub appropriately and kind of the different entrance points. So definitely, signage, communication, those are definitely top of our list. Yeah, thank you for that. What other thoughts do we have? All right, well, we will continue on, and obviously, if you continue, if you're thinking about more comments or feedback and you have something additional that's not been kind of highlighted today, please feel free to email me, Christina, or Tatiana. We can get those over to be included in next year's review packet.
And so just to go through some of the next steps or what you guys can expect from us moving forward, we will have an actual debriefing meeting, which is going to be in progress for being planned. And we will be reviewing the in-person event data and survey feedback a little bit more in depth, where we have already identified areas of improvement, and so that we can start talking about, solutions to address some of that. We will also be reviewing the virtual event data and feedback from the schools and help develop a recommendation for future events. And then we are going to be presenting those recommendations and improvements to the HILT network once we have them sort of scoped out. And we are also working on finalizing the 2024 event report that is in progress currently, and this will be shared out to HILT and the planning committee by mid-May. And for our event highlight video, this is in progress. This will be shared and added to the HILT video library as well as to the planning committee. It was a volunteer student from UW this year that actually filmed the event video, and we did get a first draft of it. It looks fantastic. She's just going back and making some changes. However, she's a college student, so she does need to focus on school and then get back to us on that. So that's the small delay on the video is.
Thank you, Tatiana. And so, as you know, it takes, many dedicated volunteers to produce the people power needed to plan and create and execute these big events. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge folks for their participation and involvement. This event we offer free to the schools and students, and we're able to do that thanks to the generous support from our financial sponsors, from our HILT partners and the healthcare industry. So shout out to the City of Seattle Office of Economic Development, the Washington State Center of Excellence, the Southwest Washington Area Health Education, Seattle Children's, and Kaiser Permanente for being our financial sponsors this year. And it also takes lots of participations from community organizations and higher education organizations and industry organizations to provide all these tabling and resources and opportunities for students. And so, as you can see, we had, 29, 30-ish organizations that participated this year. So you can see that list there. And just a big thank you and shout out to UW Doctors for a Day, Nora, who's here. Doctors for the Day, they're instrumental in helping us secure the venue and get that at a reasonable rate with their sponsorship. and of course, very instrumental in helping to pull together the hands-on activities and the volunteers and needed to be able to provide those activities for students. So Nora, thank you very much to you and your team there. And also, not last but not least, it takes a group of, many dedicated volunteers. And these are the folks who were on the planning committee this year. So shout out to everyone who's mentioned here. We call it the Sound Careers and Healthcare Planning Team, but, we also call it Team Awesome because these are the group of folks that came together on a regular basis and look through, the planning and, helped as we were helped with the guidance as we pulled together and executed this event. So shout out to everyone on this list. I don't know how many of you are here, but if you're here, maybe you can just unmute so we can acknowledge all of you. So I see Ali and Marita and Abby, Rosette, Tatiana, James, myself. I don't know, James, I hope I'm not missing anybody else that's here, that's present.
I think you got everyone.
Okay, great. Just, a big shout out and big thanks to everyone. The collective work, the result of this collective work was a very successful event this year. So thank you, everyone. And I know we were throughout the presentation, we were taking in some feedback and questions about your thoughts. So if there's anything in additional that you would like to share, you can also send that to any of us here. James mentioned that earlier. We've got our email addresses there. Please feel free. As we've taken the feedback that you've already provided us today. And as Tatiana mentioned, we'll be convening as a planning committee to do a debrief. And the report that then is produced, the final written report, will also include our recommendations for improvements for next year that will guide our planning for the 25 conference.
All right, just opening this up to everyone for any additional last comments or questions, anything else for input? Yeah, Ali, yeah, I see your hand up. I would say your virtual hand, but I saw your actual hand.
Yeah, so Christina, I'm just really curious about WOBS and looking forward how this really plays a part of your strategy. I don't know anything except that you guys always show up and help get this done. Could you describe more about how this makes a difference for you as an organization and what you guys want to do moving forward with this kind of work?
Yeah, absolutely. So WOBS, we work for the school districts and we provide the career connected learning continuum of programs for school districts, which, start in elementary. It could be STEM nights, those kinds of activities that we do with elementary age students to get them really interested and engaged at a young age. We also put together career tours where we take large groups of students to all kinds of industries to do tours, whether it's Boeing or Amazon, just lots of different industries, Providence. So, we give that awareness, that career awareness of what kinds of careers are out there. We also provide some job shadow opportunities. So, for students that say, okay, I visited all these places and I think healthcare is my interest and I'm actually interested in being a dentist, then what are those opportunities for them to shadow with somebody who's in that specific field so that they can learn more about it. And then we also help with internships and those career preparation activities around career launches, getting them into programs where they actually are doing learning. They may be taking courses at a community college, And in addition, they have a work-based a paid work-based learning opportunity where they're combining instruction and work-based learning to get that skill in that high demand area field that they're interested in. We also work with the schools. Our work is focused on equity. So we focus on students furthest from opportunity and the programs that we put together. So that's just a little bit of background, and there's a lot more things that we do. But this feeds into how we're providing these resources for the school districts and for the students that are served by the school districts. So I hope that helps, Ali.
Yeah, the reason I asked is I wondered if there are other things you're doing that we should know about as a planning committee, because we always have to think about the question of what next. So are there other things that you're also doing? I'm sure not at this scale, but just that we should know about that are specific for healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's something we could do at a future meeting. We could, do a presentation about WOBs, and we can focus in on some of we are doing some things specifically around healthcare. So we could focus on some of those programs.
Yeah.
Great suggestion, Ali.
Definitely. And I was going to suggest as well that, we're going to start kind of combining more people together to begin making up the committee for next year's event. So just know that we'll reach out to everybody who's here and those who are not here and ask you to see if you want to be part of that committee, because all these different perspectives, especially for those that have attended the event or have heard the report, then you're going to have lots of good perspectives on kind of improving this event each year and years after. So definitely want to keep that at the top of mind. If you're considering joining a committee, this would be a great committee to join for that next year's event. So we really would appreciate that support.
And it is an awesome team, so lots of fun.
It is an awesome team. Yeah, lots of fun work. And definitely, people really leaned in. I mean, we were all really busy, obviously, in that spring, went really fast from the start of the year, but people really leaned in, gave their time and their dedication, and greatly appreciate all that effort. So thank you, everyone. All right, we're going to oh yeah, go ahead, Marissa.
Yeah, just in thinking about the comments about the physical space and the students still feeling crowded, I am curious. I mean, the hub is a great facility, but also apparently it's not quite big enough for you all. And certainly as attendance continues to grow, as if more schools are brought in, you're going to need a bigger space as well. But I'm curious, there are certain budgetary constraints that could go into that too. So have you had initial thoughts about what might be a good approach to the space issue? Is it getting more floors at the hub or some other location even?
I would like to say that this was actually something that did come up. We are interested in expanding this event and increasing participation and attendance for students. And we would like to open this as an opportunity to more people if possible. It has been suggested here and there, that perhaps we want to just look at a bigger venue next year to host this event. And I know that, as you mentioned, there are budgetary concerns and stuff, but I do believe a lot of venues also offer nonprofit discounts. So that's something that we would be able to utilize that would hopefully help alleviate or offset some of those budgeting needs and concerns. But it has been mentioned a few times that perhaps we might want to think about looking at a larger venue for future events. So, which I'm in full support of. So
if anybody has any good connections at the convention center, because I mean, honestly, in terms of getting bigger than this, it's not a lot of spaces. Like there's not a whole lot there that would be able, but so like the convention center or potentially like one of the stadiums. So because that T-Mobile and then whatever the Clink is called now, at where the Seahawks are, they host career fairs and other events like this for other folks, but those are big things. So if we can get an in there, then that would obviously help being able to lower some of those expenses if we can. So so work those networks. If anybody
Mm-hmm.
happens to golf with the Seahawks quarterback or something like that, maybe get us a connection in for some of those supports.
Yeah, and I would say that when we talk about expenses, the greatest expense is the food because
Mhm.
we feed the students. So I would say, a good almost half of the money is around the food. And we did initially look at the convention center. But what happens with some of those facilities is they require you to use their food services.
Mhm. Yep.
And then that really drives up the price. So I think it's a combination of things. It's not only a reduced venue, but, so if, with 500
Yeah.
students, we spent, a good probably $15,000 just, to be able to feed students and give them a
Mhm.
snack and water and all of that. So I think that as we go into this, those would be the considerations. It was challenging this year to raise the funds. And so I think that if the will is to find a bigger venue to be able to increase the number of students, then there would need to
Mhm.
be a significant financial support
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
accomplish that.
Yeah, Betsy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so this would be going in a slightly different direction, but just since we're talking about some of the challenges, I thought I'd share an idea of what about making smaller events instead of having one big event, you have like a quarterly event in different areas, like maybe Snohomish, South King, and maybe have it be more of the hands-on and less tables. Because I think as somebody who sat at a table, I don't think the students get as much out of coming to a table with healthcare professionals and they're like, I don't know what to ask you. So the hands-on stuff I feel like is probably where the real value is for these students. And the tables take up a lot of space. But if you just had hands-on activities on like a rotating quarterly basis in different areas, uh on a smaller scale, you wouldn't have to necessarily provide food, especially if it's just hands-on. Like you could do it for half the day. I don't know, just another approach.
Yeah, I think even if it's half a day, we'd provide food. I
Mhm.
think that's
Mhm.
just, how the school
Yeah.
districts look at that. So I
Yeah.
think regardless, we would provide food, but then it would also be volunteers. And we've really leaned into UW Doctors for a Day, and I mean, they've been great. And so that would be something to explore. And also, again, that commitment of, the volunteers to be able to provide those if we're doing them in different locations and at different times.
Yeah, definitely something to look more into. Thank you, Betsy.
Mhm.
Any other comments, questions, reflections?
Well, just to bring forward and remind folks that in the subcommittee, the fundraising subcommittee, we did talk about putting out the ask not only to healthcare systems within the region, but also to other big players such as Amazon, Microsoft, Starbucks, T-Mobile. So I know that is probably another item that the planning team or maybe even WAPS was going to look into, so we can fundraise more and have money for a bigger venue.
Yeah, thank you, Rosette. And I was just going to comment about Marissa's comment in the chat. And Marissa, you said have a sign that says "Ask me about," and it's for every table. Like ask me about internships or job shadowing or anything of that. And it's interesting because it really ties up with another comment that I heard, and it was helping students identify what to ask. Right, because I did hear some feedback from some of the tables that said students would be there and be like, okay, like I'm here. And they want us to go, oh, well, let me tell you all this information, but really trying to educate the students on how to ask the question. Here are my interests. Here's my, 3-minute elevator speech, or let's go 30-second elevator speech. And so, what are the things that they can highlight and where their interest lies and how can we be supportive in that? So I really like that idea a lot because it did kind of speak to that as well. So thank you.
And
Marissa.
it's a little opportunity to teach these kids how to engage
Right.
too, right? As they're transitioning to adulthood. I mean, I still feel like I need practice in small talk. It's not one of my strengths.
Well, isn't there an app for that? I'm just kidding. Yeah, so yeah, no, I agree. It definitely is a different cohort, and you're getting older when you say a phrase like that, but it definitely changes. The needs and the conversations and how to engage students effectively does change. So great point of that. All right, and Ali, like the idea of not increasing the size and frequency, but making them more local. So making more kind of smaller in your neighborhood kind of events. All right. All right. Any last reflections? Still a call out for it. Well, if you have any additional comments, you got our contact information here. So please, feel free to share your ideas and thoughts. And then remember, next year we will be doing a call out for committee members, and this is where all this great knowledge kind of puts into practice all the changes that we can make. And obviously, venue is going to be top of mind in addition to finances, so sponsorship. So we'll kind of continue on with that. We have some HILT announcements, just kind of to close here a little bit. Don't forget, we do have a LinkedIn group. It is the Healthcare Industry Leadership Table LinkedIn group. You can join for free. This is where you can post any of your activities that are happening related to healthcare regarding student programs, job shadowing, job talent acquisition and hiring, any programs that are coming up in healthcare. If you're not part of it yet, we do update it and post postings weekly, and there's a lot of good information on there on like different areas of healthcare and behavioral health. So make sure you join. Also, some upcoming meetings. We do have our HILT spring meeting. It is going to be live and in person. So put a big calendar hold on your Thursday, June 13th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We have not selected a location just yet. We're in the mix of sorting that out, and it is going to be in person only. There will not be a virtual option for that. So we do want to have your attendance there. It's going to be with all of our HILT captains, the network, and other partners in support. So we are looking forward to that as well. And then, of course, on Thursday, June 27th, we have the support partner check-in. And that is really for all support partners to come in. And what we talk about is what we hear at the quarterly meeting, right? So quarterly kind of comes, identifies their issues, industries, talking about some of the pain points with support partners and all the other organizations. And then it's a support partner check-in. We follow up that meeting by really discussing what we heard and how to be supportive in that fashion. So keep those updated, and definitely we look forward to seeing you and then at a virtual meeting as well. All right, we have some final words from Rosette. Rosette, final reflections.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so hopefully, you all continue to see the value of this partnership, because it definitely does take all of us, right, to make a difference and help continue to push this work forward. And not only that, but it's very fulfilling to connect with the younger generation and future healthcare workers. So thank you to everyone who participated and contributed to the success of Sound Careers in Healthcare 2024. Your dedication and collaboration has been instrumental in achieving our shared success, because that's really why we're all here, right? We come together to promote awareness of healthcare jobs to underserved students. And so with that, if nobody else has anything else to share, I will leave it at that until our next meeting, which will be in person. So I hope to see most of you there.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate your support and engagement. And thank you to our HILT captains, Ali and Trinity. Really appreciate your support here as well, in addition to all the committee members. So have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will see you soon.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.